welcome back to Car Design Dialogues Europe. I hope you're enjoying the show so far. Now, car designers tend to specialize in their chosen discipline, with furniture, product, industrial design, cars even, but they find inspiration in all kinds of places and all aspects of design. So with that in mind, Car Design News has invited leading creators from a variety of creative fields to explore the spaces where car design, art and fashion meet. And I'm delighted to be joined by a stellar lineup to discuss some of the ideas that we're talking about. And they are Bernadetta Turano, Umberto De Marco, Matteo Kibic, and Naomi. Now, I'm going to butcher your surname, Naomi, I'm afraid, but it's Naomi Klaufer? Oh, you're on mute.
Camper.
Okay, thank you. Who are going to help us discuss some of these areas. First of all, I think there's a poll relating to this that should be going up soon, which asks you which discipline you look to for inspiration. So, guys, I'm going to ask you, Bernadetta, to introduce yourself, and I'll ask all the panelists to introduce themselves. But Bernadetta, we may as well start with you.
Yeah, sure. So hello, everyone. My name is Benedetta Terraneo, and I'm the marketing design manager in a company called Mico. And what we produce is Dinamica, which is a suede that is largely used in automotive for interiors of the seat, pillars, so multiple applications inside the vehicles. And we've been around for many years now.
And Matteo?
Thank you. I'm Matteo Cibic. I'm a designer and transmedia artist. I work with different materials, different industries. In the last 20 years, we've been working with more than 50 companies, from textile, rugs, ceramic, glass industry, telecommunication. And I like to experiment with different techniques, different production, and I was very lucky to work with Mico and with Dinamica in the last years.
Wonderful. And Umberto, moving on to you. Actually, Umberto, you've brought a video for us to show, which explains a fair amount about your company. Not everything, but it will give us a good overview. So if we could roll that now, that would be great.
How to make a sustainable sneaker. The story of Yatai. Our fabric comes from recycled plastic. What goes around comes around. For the lining, we give new life to wood. Take it easy. We're slow fashion. And what better than tires for our super resistant insoles? Yatai is super comfy and vegan. Why should animals suffer? So we take corn, not that one. Our corn is non-food. And we turn it into a biomaterial from renewable sources. Cheers. Color. Bake. Yatai is handmade in Italy. Who knows more about style than Italians? Oh, almost ready? Sustainability is served. Yatai.
Wonderful. That was a fun introduction. And Naomi, last but not least, I think you've got a video clip as well that we can roll before we get the conversation going. before. I feel ever so slightly left out that I don't have a video to introduce me, but never mind. On with the show. I thought I'd ask you, Naomi, to start with. I first came across your work because you were still involved with a company called MGS. Was it MGS Materialize way back?
MGX by Materialize, yes.
Yeah, yeah. And I remember you were covered in my old publication. This is going back a while, but I thought, it'd be instructive actually to say just a bit more about what Stratasys, your current company, does at the moment, and then we can ask a little bit about your role there, because it's quite an interesting mesh of two different factors, I suppose.
Yeah, so Stratasys is one of the leading companies in the world today for the field of 3D printing. It's a producer of 3D printers, mostly known for FDM and PolyJet. Worldwide, it's a global company with headquarters in Israel and in Minnesota.
And what kind of things do you 3D print? Because if someone went to the website, the first thing they'd see is a rocket taking off, which isn't the most obvious thing to associate you with, but we'll get to that in a minute, I think.
Yeah, so the company is specialized in different business units, different business aspects, from automotive, medical, aerospace, as you mentioned, and industrial fields. My specialization in the company is actually translating the technology to the creative market, so designers, fashion designers, artists, and integrating the technology in these new fields.
And I guess the obvious question is this idea of kind of shared creativity, because it's not the most obvious thing to have, I suppose, is for Stratasys to have a creative director involved with fashion and art when they are mainly concerned with quite practical applications. So I wonder whether you could speak a little bit about that.
Yeah, so the job seems as if it would not suit a straightforward industrial situation. However, what we do is we deeply investigate our materials and our technologies and translate this into solutions that are fit for designers. And of course, designers are main users of the technology, so therefore the usability is very, very high. In my activity, we focus on 4 different pillars. One, of course, by creating examples for the market that are highly relatable, emotional, and that people can address also the non-professional market. The second pillar is the real R&D understanding, so going deep into the material properties and to the technological cutting edge solutions and translating that to the creative market, so bridging between the business and the users. The third pillar is understanding what can be new markets, if it is our recent activity for the fashion world and our ability to 3D print on textiles. And the fourth pillar is, of course, education, bringing about the know-how, the knowledge to as many users as possible. And that we are achieving mostly by creating eye-catching examples and examples that can be brought to museums, to publications, to discussions, storytelling, so that everybody would find a way to relate and to understand what this is about.
I feel like there's an interesting synergy. Well, I mean, there's 2 sides to our brain: the creative side and the rational side. And I feel like you kind of sit between those two moments in this company, and hopefully, I presume, sort of join those 2 things together. And Benedetta, I presume, I would imagine this is a similar thing for you. You're a very creative kind of company with an interesting innovative material, but ultimately it's about practical applications.
Yeah, our work is to connect a very creative moment with our technical expertise to meet our customer demands, which are related to a very complicated sector, because we all know, automotive very well. I think that R&D and the creative part are not disconnected. We now work all in teams. There is not a moment in which in one room we find 4 people working in different levels of our production, joining together and and bringing on the table the topics in order to convey and properly deliver the best products. I think connected not only internally in our companies but also externally to all the information that we collect outside is the key for this industry.
And Matteo, you've collaborated with Benedetta on a almost like it's called Electric Dreams, but I wasn't quite sure if it's a sound installation or an experimental kind of digital proposition. But maybe you could tell us a little bit more about that. I will say it's got an incredibly funky 80s synth soundtrack.
Thank you. Well, the work is about when I met Benedetta, she asked me to do something about the car of the future and how I visualize the future of transportation. There is people who likes to go to the restaurant and people that like to cook at home. And there's people who likes to drive and people that don't like to drive, just to sit on the back seat and look at the landscape or do other activities. So I'm that kind of person. And the self-driving car, somehow it's my dream. I really hate to drive. And to me, a vehicle is not something, an object that brings you from A to B, but is something that can turn into a space very soon. So I thought that in a few years we can easily have a late dinner in Paris and then have a comfortable sleep of 8 hours sleep in the car, and you wake up in Venice at 7 o'clock in the morning, ready to go to work. So that's really plausible in a few years, I hope. And it means that the car itself becomes a space in which you have different activities, such as playing instrumental music, or do gym, or do other hobbies, maybe plants, trees, or do even physical activities. So the project Electric Dream is about designing the musical instruments of the future with which you can play with even friends inside the car of the future. So they have gyroscopes. You will see the video on Miko website. Mm-hmm. And you have an electric violin that works with the movement of a really little movement. You can change the octaves. You can draw the shape of the sounds. And we work with different musicians to, apply the biggest technology to make it even a bit fun. You can turn your body into a drum machine, into a one-man band. So applying on Dinamica Miko fabrics, these sensible inks, in a way that wherever you touch them, you play different music. By moving yourself or by touching, you activate somehow loop machines.
It's a fascinating idea.
We had a lot of fun doing this, and when I presented this new collection to my automotive customer, they were like, "Are you presenting music instrumental?" That's crazy. What's the relation with automotive? But actually, there was like a unique to show our product in this mature cheap way, which completely hit the target.
But was it a natural collaboration for you to go to Matteo, who's a kind of artist, designer, kind of, I think, Matteo, you describe yourself as like you design sort of luxury fun, and you're very much influenced by the young British artists of the early 90s, but it doesn't necessarily seem a natural collaboration for you two. I'm just curious about how that came about.
We bumped into his art by looking on a magazine, and I Googled on the internet, and I thought, oh, this guy is not like too close, too far away from me. So I called him, and a couple of weeks later, we sat down together, talking about the future of automotive. It was fun.
Well, I suppose it's cuts to the heart of what we're talking about here, and this is these moments between different disciplines and how they can advance things. Umberto, you said, well, we saw your video about your video clip about Yatay. I know you were before that, you were president of Coronet, I think, which was eco leather company which did have applications, automotive applications. Maybe if you could flesh out a little bit about that, and then we can talk about the Yatay work and perhaps the connections between these things.
Coronet, it's a multinational founded 54 years ago. The core business is producing synthetic leather for shoes and bags. But in the last decade, we decided to invest a lot with a mission. Our mission was to evolve a material that has always been considered as the cheap alternative of leather, evolve it into something that could be considered luxury and, most importantly, sustainable. And after 7 years of R&D, we came up with a product which is incredibly innovative, because instead of being 95 to 99% petroleum based, like all the synthetic leathers on the market, we created a bio leather, a biomaterial that is above 80% from natural sources. So it takes origin from cereals, from wood, viscose, from recycled plastic, and so on. Once I had this material in my hand, I realized that there was not a single brand on the market that ever took seriously sustainability in order to create a luxury sustainable sneaker. And so in that very same moment, I decided to try to create the Tesla more than the Ferrari of the sneakers. And so after 1.5 years of R&D, I reconnected all the suppliers that I already was familiar with in Italy, top-notch producer of all the sustainable components of the sneaker. And 3 years ago, I presented the first Yatay sneaker.
It's an interesting moment, isn't it? Because the fashion industry has become a lot more conscious about sustainability. I mean, your company being a case in point, but to me, it kind of asks the question: how do we define, or should we be redefining luxury materials? Can a material be defined as a luxury material without being sustainable? And I wondered if that's a question actually for all of you guys.
Well, for sure, it doesn't matter what you do, but it's also how you do it. I think this moving forward is the key. We are not only to do our job, but we have to do it good and well. And it's just a combination of these two things that will put us in the next phase, that will place us in the future. And I think that automotive, to just name this sector, but many other sectors already set their goals. And it's part of us which belong to the supply chain, this really big industry, to also make this change, to improve what we do to a next level. Otherwise, we'll be left out in this supply chain.
Naomi, I think that sustainability is obviously a very important part of your work as well. And have you, working with artists, have you noticed a much more sort of a much greater focus on this idea? I mean, the idea of art being sustainable seems a kind of slightly contradictory thing, because art exists for its sake, it exists for our pleasure or entertainment or to provoke us. But should art be sustainable?
I think art in itself. Oh, sorry.
No, Naomi. I think you can better answer this question for sure.
Okay, I think art in itself is quite sustainable, since we're not talking about mass production. We're not talking about a large waste product. And this is true also for 3D printing. It's an additive technology. So unlike a reductive, there's no waste created within the manufacturing technique. And also there's a very high level of customization and personalization. So there's a hard and a strong attachment between the product quality and the user. making it less likely that the user will throw away the product after a period of time. So we really are focused on tailoring the product to the customer and making sure that there is such a high likability that we don't generate a massively produced waste.
And Umberto, I wondered whether with something like your company, Yatay, that's doing these kind of very, very nicely tailored and crafted shoes, whether there were lessons for the automotive world or car designers that could be taken from that sector and used to inform what we do.
Well, actually, it's about the technology, I guess, because right after I started the brand Yatay using our bio leather for the sneaker. We realized that we started collaborating also with the automotive world, with Coronet, for two reasons. First thing, because automotive world is constantly looking for sustainable alternatives to leather. Second thing, because the material that we use for Yatay and can be used also in the automotive can be finished with exactly the same technology of the real leather. Why this is very useful for the automotive brands? Because in this case, you can combine in the interior of the car a leather with the bio-based material without having any color difference between the two of them, which is something that you cannot obtain with the PVC, which has always been used in the past. So let's say that it has been extremely useful for the brands because it has a double winning point on the sustainability aspect and on the aesthetical part of the product.
And is your studio in regular conversations with other industries that particularly automotive? Do people come to you to talk about the material and how you apply it?
Yeah, definitely. To be honest, when we started this sustainable adventure 8 years ago, we were the pioneers in this field. And I still remember that we were presenting the first sustainable collections in Linea Pelle in our fairs, and nobody were considering these materials. Finally, in the last 2 years, people are coming to see us, are visiting us, not to look for a cheap material, but to look for a proper alternative, sustainable to what they use so far. And it can be used in very different applications, from shoes and bags, as we always did. But as I was telling you, going to automotive and to many, hopefully, different fields in the future.
Okay, it's interesting. Yeah, I had a question for you actually, Matteo, because I was examining your work beforehand, and we spoke briefly about your inspirations. But I wonder if you could just go back a little bit and talk about how you became a designer, because you didn't have a very conventional path. I mean, I think you mentioned that your parents wanted you to be the next pope, but I think if you could explain a little bit about how you came to where you are, and then maybe I'll ask you about how some of your ideas and your aesthetic and your MO could be brought to automotive. Oh, I think you may be on mute.
I really like performance and to enter into a completely designed universe with strong narratives. And probably when I was a kid, I was very, for me, it was very intriguing how church was creating this universe. That's why probably I was so attracted that I want to turn as the new pope. Then at the age of 15, I found that there were other worlds, and I moved to Milan all my summers at my uncle's studio, and there I discovered design, art, and the incredible parties that you have in Milan, and the multi-ethnic scenery that I've never seen before. So that's what brought me to art and to design. I find interesting, while you were talking before, how somehow the automotive industry is one of the oldest industry from which we can probably learn a lot, because having such a long history is the one that changed throughout the time and understand what couldn't be, what could be done and what was harder to be done. And these days, and I mean the last years, I'm thinking about how speed most of the time is not connected with sustainability. And speed.
Yeah.
And if you see like all the car industry at the beginning, while developing a product, the car had to be as fast as possible. But in the last 10 years, the speed is not an issue. And at the same time, all the industries, they get more and more performative on the speed. So we start having fast food, then fast fashion, now fast design. But we got even into fast politics. Never happened in the history of human being that a political guy after 1 hour with a tweet turns from 90% to 10%. And as well with love affairs. Has never happened in human history that you can have so much lovers in such a small amount of time with Tinders. So speed is leveraging the quality of our memories and how we relate with people and with objects. So going to the point, my work is to design objects. If we don't care about objects, we don't care as well about people and about environment. So that's why I believe that it's important that every object has a narrative, has a story, and is somehow connected with the people that use them in a way that you are not going to throw it very fast, this product. So my way of design is to create always a narrative and to create even, that's why you see in most of my product anthropomorphic shapes, because if you have an anthropomorphic shape, maybe you see it as a soul, as a persona, and you care about the objects.
I mean, I think you're absolutely right about the acceleration of the modern world. It seems to build with unstoppable pace. Do you think we need to slow down?
Well, you know, I think it's quite known, this research by Microsoft of already 5 years ago, that our attention span in less than a decade turned from 12 seconds into 8 seconds. The point that now in 5 years turned from 8 seconds into 6 seconds, and in the next few years we're gonna get into 4 seconds.
I feel like I'm 4 seconds already, I'm afraid.
Yeah, and if you see even how we work with the computer, the average time we spent in front of the single screen moved in the last 3 years from 2 minutes into 38 seconds. So there is a limit with our abilities of keeping attention and dedicate our mind to people, to thought, to to different issues, and we are not physically able to do that. So it means even in the car, we are not able to do 20 things. But today we have to talk at the phone, reply to a WhatsApp, maybe listen to a podcast, and at the same time try not to kill an old woman just passing by.
No, but
Yeah,
it's true.
I think the automotive industry needs to really find the right balance because, of course, there is this urgency to be connected with the outside world, but at the same time, what we really need is to be connected with ourselves. And I think that's why we see all this new interior design, more calm and soft, less buttons, because I think we need to put an order of all this impulse. Maybe cars shouldn't only be the vehicles that takes us around, maybe be more like a sanctuary, like a place where we can feel secure and safe, maybe just calm down.
It would be nice to think that we could get away from our screens at some point. And at the moment, there's obviously most cars, a lot of customers expect screens and information in their car interiors. But I think there's an interesting point here, Benedetto, about the idea of the car being almost a kind of a restful place away from, particularly if you're not having to drive or be so engaged with the idea of driving. If we're moving to automated transport, then maybe it could be very much one of those Google rooms that they used to put in their offices where you could not get a mobile phone signal. Maybe we don't need to go as far as that, but the idea that we could shut ourselves off for, as I think Matteo said, having a meal in Paris and then sleeping on the way back. Was that Matteo? Or was that you, Umberto? I can't remember.
Yeah, it was Matteo. Crazy idea.
Idea that that would be.
But I'm a supporter of the idea.
It would be great. I mean, if we could just forget about driving and just do our own things, that makes us happy.
Yeah, no.
James, last year, at the beginning of the year, before Corona came, I had this project about not to take flight for 1 year. And I thought it was a very hard, a project because I worked mainly for international clients. And I used to take at least 1 flight per week. And so I thought it was just a matter of etiquette that you don't have to travel to Paris twice a week to have a meeting with a person. It's just about how you deal this interaction through the online. And at the time, we were not used to use everyday Zoom and Meet and other technology. It was just a matter of etiquette. So when you go to a client in Paris, you spend at least an hour with them. You drink a coffee, you talk about vacation, about their family, and then you talk about work. While when we were doing, now change in 1 year time, we were talking about work on digital platforms. We were not talking about personal things. And that made a big swift. And now we accept to see maybe a client for the first time just here on a screen. So the next project is to decrease, after reading a book called 8 Seconds, that is actually about our attention span, is to turn from 6 hours per day at the phone to half an hour. And now I reach 1 hour, 10 minutes.
Yeah, but we are going through a shift. I think also thanks to COVID, everything has been forced to slow down. And I think also we see that one of the main diseases after COVID in our Western society is burnouts. So I think nature is also retaliating and telling us, watch out, if you are not slowing down, we'll slow you down. And making us sensitive again. So if technology has exponentially driven us to mass consumerism, then nature knows how to correct us and to sensitize us again.
Yeah, I think this year we all learned the lesson that we really need to take care of the quality of our lives. So health is for sure should be replacing one of the first places, and maybe move away a little bit from technology.
And I have to say that cars in the last year turned into a pleasure tool. I mean, if you use the car, it's a way to escape from home or to go to somewhere nice.
Even without driving.
I loving cars in the last year.
I completely agree. Well, I used it to. I was going to say I used it to escape my family. I didn't use it to escape my family. I used it to escape my family away from London, which was obviously quite a strange place to be because you're used to being in a thriving city, and then all of a sudden everything's deadly quiet. So, what else do? You can maybe drive down the road and go to the forest and experience that. I'm interested in this idea as well about storytelling, guys. And Matteo, you touched on it there, the idea of narrative design, and I wondered how important that was to your work. Umberto, maybe we could ask you that and the idea of storytelling.
Sorry, I didn't get the question, James.
So that was for you, Umberto. It's the importance of storytelling in your work.
It's fundamental, especially for someone who is trying to create a new concept of a sustainable luxury sustainable sneaker. it's not only about the product, but you have to create a whole story around it. What we personally made has been trying to involve our clients in our environmental challenge. And how did we think about it? We decided to engrave in the back of every sneaker a code, which we called the Yatai code. And this is it. So every sneaker is unique. And through this code, our clients are able to, first of all, choose their tree and plant it in our forest in Kenya. And then the cool thing is that through some algorithm, we're able to keep track how much CO2 this tree absorbs every year. And once the client tree will have absorbed as much CO2 as we emitted in the production of the sneaker, we will advise our clients, and they will know that from that moment, they will have finally a positive impact on the environment. And the second thing is always with this code, we give the possibility to our clients, once the shoes arrive at the end of their lifetime, to recycle them. So basically, we take care of withdrawing them, and we melt the soles in order to upcycle them and create new ones. And in the meanwhile, we sustainably dispose of the upper and the other components of the sneaker. And I have to tell you that we really feel that these little things make every single client part of our mission. And when they buy our sneaker, they feel like they're not just buying a cool object to wear at night, but they're doing something marginal, but that can help the environment.
I was just pausing to see if anyone wanted to jump in there, but I maybe Bernadetta, we could talk about the idea of storytelling with you as well, because it feels like customers do want sort of greater knowledge of the kind of provenance of their stuff. Be it how their clothes are made, to where the food comes from. But I wonder how much interest there is in that in your sector in automotive, and whether it's becoming more of a focus.
Yeah, so started to produce Dinamica. It was the late 90s, and back then nobody was talking about recycled product or water-based product or sustainability. So we had kind of a hard time to break the wall until the right time came. And all of a sudden, everybody's interested in recycled products and in carbon footprint, cycle analysis. And I think we were ready when all of a sudden all of this happened. And we didn't start because we wanted to follow a fashion. It was a part of our DNA since the beginning. Because we already believed the future would have been producing suede using recycled plastic bottles without using through a production process, water-based. So I think our story and the way we also evolved our story, because of course this was the beginning, but we are now trying to always push some barriers, and now we're proposing for automotive, a product line with even more recycled content. We're also thinking of how Dinamica can be recycled at the end of life. So all of this is part of our baggage, and this is very important to our customers in automotive, especially because they rely on information of LCA, on CO2 emissions. They need certification that testify that the way we do our work is transparent. So we need also to speak the same language, and this is very important to our customers.
Interesting. Naomi, I wondered if you could talk a little bit about some of the projects you've done in the art world and the fashion world that have fed back into some innovations. The example I have in mind actually is a project that you embarked upon, which I think was a kind of art installation or project, but you may correct me on that actually led to applications in medical applications. And I think it's quite instructive to see that kind of that feedback between something that is ostensibly an art project that becomes something actually really, really crucial and innovative. And I want to tell us a little bit.
That's right. If I may, I also want to, before going to that, to refer to a collaboration that we have here with all the partners in this call. Since together with our partner Dylon, together with Benedetta and Matteo, we are also combining the technology of 3D printing directly on the textiles of Miko, and Matteo has been working on different designs, which I will keep confidential for the time being, but this is also one of the very innovative highlights, the fact that you can 3D print on textile and consider the different applications of this emergence, and this could be relevant for the automotive industry, for upholstery, like Matteo was saying, when we are today sitting in the car, we need a new environment. We might integrate 3D printed buttons on the upholstery, or maybe electronics, or different solutions together with innovative substrates, new textiles, sustainable textiles that enable all this. So we're introducing disciplines that in the past we did not consider that would come together, again, bridging certain gaps, and as well as shoes, bags, different solutions for accessories, also for day-to-day fashion and other wearables. The example that you were referring to is indeed an example that we did together with Neri Oxman. This was for our collection of 2014, where we spoke about the sixth element. 3D printing, in a way, is a sixth element, and thanks to PolyJet technology, we are able to digitally compute the physical parameters of every particle that we print. And that allows us, in fact, to consider a new realm of material that is hyper-realistic and that excels, let's say, the Mendeleev table. And Neri Oxman considered for this collection organ that you would wear in space, that on your body, that would function a little bit like a digestive system that is able to do photosynthesis and translate CO2 to sugar. Very useful if you're planning to travel out of space.
Yes.
For this conceptual project, our R&D team had to find a new way how to build a channel that is 8 meters long and 1 millimeter thick inside of this art project. And they sat all night and they were dripping a soluble support structure inside of these hollow paths of the artwork. And as a result, we developed a new material that was a soluble support that today helps us to 3D print hearts and blood systems and medical solutions. So it's true that from a very conceptual topic, like how are we going to create a sixth element or a solution for the future, we come for a very acute solution for the present and able to save lives. So that's a very beautiful example of how innovation transcends disciplines, as well as the project that we're doing with Miko. I think this also transcends disciplines, and that we today more than ever have to think about how we integrate creativity cross-border. As we have here today, we have a shoe designer talking to art design, to a textile company about car design. So you see that this is just within this group, this is a very interesting combination that maybe years ago we would not think that these people can streamline in one project. So I think that's the good mirror of the time that we're in.
No, yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more.
Yeah, so we also what a good combination between like a movie maker or a designer and could do together. We this thing like a beautiful car almost landing in Pandora. So I think we really need to be open to other categories and sectors, because this is the key for the future. Consumers don't live in bubbles, and they look at all the categories simultaneously.
Great. That might well be actually quite a nice note to end on, guys. If I have no more questions, but I think it's been a really fascinating discussion today about cross-disciplinary, cross-conceptual ideas, and I think I really appreciate you guys all come together to sort of share some of your thoughts, knowledges, and open up new conversations with our audience. So thanks so much, guys. I think we'll leave it there, but just to say that we're going to take a break now, and then the next session will be at 2:05 Central European time, where we're going to be talking to the guys from Skoda. It's a very practical level of design, as opposed to this more wide-ranging conversation, but equally interesting, I think. Thanks very much all, and hopefully see you soon in the flesh, maybe, if we're lucky.
Thank you, Jay.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.